So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our seminar this evening on going solar. We have almost 50 people signed up today. We'll see how many actually show up, but that's a really good sign, a good turnout, and a sign that this is a topic that people are interested in with all that's going on. Before we begin, I wanted to do a brief introduction. I do this, those of you who've been on my seminars before, I always do a little bit of a brief intro. My name is Jean Joe, and I am the broker and owner of Perisson Real Estate. This small boutique firm, we're based in Mowbray, and the name Perisson comes from the Greek word for abundance and overflow. And our company's vision is to serve our clients, colleagues, and community so everyone may thrive and experience abundance in their real estate lives. And we started, ever since we started in 2016, we've been doing these seminars several a year, and initially in person, and then with the pandemic, moved to Zoom, and we've been doing it ever since, and hoping to be able to provide value. We try to keep this not to be a sales pitch, and I often go out of my way to invite other real estate agents because I think it's really important for as many people as possible to be informed and educated so that we can make good decisions. And I really do believe in this principle of abundance. And so these seminars are a little bit of an overflow of that. So on to the real estate market update. Supply and demand, I showed this graphic a few weeks ago at our previous seminar. You know, it's all about supply and demand and in economics, and that holds true for real estate as well. Just to give an idea of, so what is the supply that we're dealing with? And the way that we measure that is through this metric called months of inventory. And what this does is actually count how many listings are active on the market and how long would it take to just, if nothing else new came on, how long would it take to sell all of those out at the current rate that houses are being sold. And the traditional way to understand this is that if you have 6 months of inventory, that line right here in the middle, 6 months of inventory is considered a balanced market. Anything above that, above 6 months, is considered a buyer's market. And anything below that is considered a seller's market. So as you can see, we've been solidly, this graph goes all the way back to 2005. And this is for single family homes in San Mateo County. And as you can see, the days on market really went up a lot. This is during our days of the last recession that we had. And so it was going over 10 months of inventory. So there were houses that were not selling and that were staying on the market quite a while. There's a lot of nuances to that. But as you can see, since about 2012, we've been pretty much hovering around the 2-month mark. So this mark right here, this line here, is 2 months of inventory, which is a solid seller's market. There were some places, there were some times along the way where it was going a little bit higher and people started saying, oh, we're going into buyer's market. And I was like, no, we're not. We're very far from it. And we've literally gone up and down among there. And lately, just within this past year, in 2021 and 2022, it's been more within the 1 month range. So literally to take whatever houses on our market, it would within 1 month, if nothing else came on, we'd sell them all and have nothing. So inventory is very low, as you probably heard, and this is true throughout the country right now. This also, you can see the median days to sell. It's a little measure of the demand aspect of it. So how long does it take for a house once it's gone on the market to be able to go into contract, actually have an offer submitted and accepted to? And this median days means, you know, there are the equal number of houses that take longer as the number of houses that take shorter to sell. In a time when there's not a lot of demand or less demand, it may take longer to go through that sale process. So again, you see high numbers here. And then this bottom mark, since about 2012, we've seen that number of days to sell hover around the 10 to 20 day mark. You do see this dip right here, and that is March 2020. And I'm sure everybody that's locked into our minds, March 2020, we all went into lockdown. And so our multiple listing service paused this counter, and because we weren't able to show property. And so it just felt like, you know, a good thing to do at the time temporarily. So that's why you see the 0 here. It's not that everything was selling as soon as it went on market. And then since then, it's pretty much equalized. This bottom line here is the 10-day mark. So, and then in recent days, last February, the median days to sell in San Mateo County for a single family home was 8 days. And so you're looking at basically a week to be able to sell. Yes, there are homes that take longer. There are some homes that take less. And so, but that 7 to 8 days, and that's true for condos and townhomes. That's true for Santa Clara County as well. So you can tell as much as the inventory is low, at the same time, when a house comes on, the demand is still very strong. And so it will sell quite quickly. And that leads to, because you have low inventory, low supply, and high demand, that leads to the price being able to go up and up and up. And so this is a look at the median sale price of single family homes in San Mateo County. And again, going back to 2005, and you can see 2005 all the way up to about 2013, it was all under a million, the median sale price. So again, median is same number of homes sell higher than that as the number that sells lower than that. And we've seen that going up, steadily up and up and up since then. We've beat the peak. So the peak in 2005 and 2006, that was back here. And then there was the recession and everybody thought, oh no, we went back up to that level by 2013, 2014, and then have pretty much doubled it. So last year, there were several times, a couple times when this metric went over the $2 million mark. In February, it was the median sale price for a single family home in San Mateo County was 1.975 million. So that just blows your mind when you think about it. It's like that high for a median sale price. We're not talking about just the luxury homes or anything like that, but that's what it takes to be able to get just a medium price home in the county. This is another way of looking at, in terms of our area, what the home price appreciation has done over the years. This graph goes back to 2001, this chart. And as you can see, it shows where it's green is showing the appreciation, home price appreciation, and where it's red is when it went down. And even during the recession, although in 2008, you have this 14.9% drop, after that, it didn't like continue to fall. It just kind of stayed around those levels. And then since then has gone up. And last year, 2021, was a record level 15.7% for single family homes in our area in terms of the prices. This represents a 216.7% increase since 2001. So that's even taking into account the recession, the boom in 2005 and 2006, and then the recession that followed, that came about in 2007, 2008 and on. So pretty big change. The other thing that you've probably all heard about is interest rates. So the 30-year fixed mortgage rates, this chart actually just goes back to 2019, but as you can see, they were steadily falling along the way. And then recently, and this chart is as of March 19th, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate, it was at 4.5%. It has gone up and down since, but it's just a matter of, we're pretty solidly in the fours. And as many of you probably know, the Federal Reserve has signaled that they'll be meeting a total of 7 times this year and probably will be raising rates every time. So they're trying to keep the inflation in check and trying to do it carefully. So that's why I guess they're meeting more frequently, but this is leading to higher interest rates. Is 4.5% a good interest rate? I think it still is, but it's not the 3% or 2.75 or 2.5 that people were seeing a couple of years ago, or even as recent as last year. So all of this, in the long run, there is a potential that these interest rates as they increase, and plus the housing prices are increasing, that we may have buyers who are priced out, who just can't afford to buy a home. But in the meantime, what we're seeing is actually an increase of buyers. So some are stepping out already, and then others are feeling a sense of urgency because they want to make sure to get in before the interest rates go even higher. So we'll be watching that. In the field, I always like to tell a story or two about what I'm seeing in the field. And definitely, there are some places that we're seeing maybe take a little bit longer, but on the whole, there is a lot of activity, whether at the open houses or with my buyer clients. I'm seeing we're going to see houses and they're saying, well, we have, 70 plus agents who've requested disclosures because they're preparing to possibly write an offer, 35 disclosures. So the multiple offer, over asking is still happening, the quick sales. So I have a listing in South San Francisco that I had put into a coming soon. And that one sold within less than a week and 100,000 over what we were expecting. So it's a little difficult out there for the buyers. It's nice for the sellers if you as long as you're willing to make sure you prepare your home well and price it well. So that's what we're seeing. Recession ahead. So what are we expecting? A lot of people are talking about recession, and so that might be a little scary as well. And so in light of that, what we decided to do is actually have another seminar very close up in April 6th. And it's called Crazy Real Estate Market. Should I stay or should I go? And we'll be talking a little more about this whole, what economists are looking at in terms of possible recession ahead, impact of inflation, housing affordability, interest rates, and all the decisions that you should that people should consider if you're thinking about buying or selling in the near term, because it's not just the metric. There are a lot of considerations and it'll depend on your goals. Just as much as if you're investing in the stock market, they'll tell you it depends on your goals in terms of what your strategy is going to be. So we're going to be talking about that, and I hope that many of you will be able to join us for that as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go over to Steve, because I know that's what you all really signed up to join us for. And he's going to go into the heart of going solar. And Steve, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself, just give me a moment to get you spotlighted. And then if you can go ahead and to introduce yourself and then launch right in, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Jean. So my name is Steve Pariani. I am a Bay Area Peninsula native, actually. Spent my whole life here, then going away to school for 4 years. And I've been in construction pretty much my entire life. And over the last 8 years, I've been in solar. And the last almost 5 years now, have owned my own company called Solar Pro Energy. I should let you know that I am on borrowed Wi-Fi tonight. Our internet is down in our neighborhood, and or at least our fiber optic internet is down. And so I have another neighbor that has allowed me to borrow his Wi-Fi. So Gina said that every once in a while the audio might get a little choppy. If that happens, Jean's going to interrupt me and ask me to repeat whatever I've said. So I really do apologize if the quality is not perfect. So reasons for going solar. This is kind of an interesting question, because in most cases, my clients come to me and tell me why they might want to go solar. There are various reasons. The most common is for saving money and going green and feeling good about doing your part to eliminate climate change and to reduce your carbon footprint. We can save the planet and also save some money in your pocket. So there are a few steps involved in getting a proposal to my clients. The first thing that we want to do is to determine how much power you've been using up to this point, and if there are any increases in potential electric usage going forward that my clients might want me to plan for when we go solar. It makes sense that the size of your roof should match what your energy consumption is. So I will in a minute hear the way we determine how much power you've been using and how I can put that into a solar proposal. Clients at this point in time are not only trying to eliminate their electric bills or their historic electric bills, but many of them, especially with gas on the roof right now, are calling me to install solar, not just, as I mentioned, to take care of their historical energy needs, but also with the anticipation of buying electric vehicles. Many people are going to air conditioner. They feel like our summers are getting hotter. They're definitely getting smokier. So people are having me plan with thinking about, these other electric loads they might be adding either, next couple months or maybe in the next couple of years. Once we go ahead and determine how much power you've been using, how much power you're going to be using going forward, then I build a 3-dimensional model of your home in my computer, and I put that through a 365-day solar simulation, and it gives me a heat map of my clients' roofs and shows me where all the best places for solar are. It's very interesting. I know even myself, we have these predetermined images in our head of where the most solar production. And I tend to often surprise myself when I do these simulations, and I find that there are, some places that are better or not as good as I might have thought to begin with. So it's a very important part of the process. I spend a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra money going through this process of actually building this three-dimensional model and getting all of my clients' electric information into my computer and then into the proposal so that we can make sure we really dial it in to give our clients the best bang for their buck. Once the proposal has been accepted by the clients, I meet with my clients on site so we can go through, the way it will look, the way it will operate, all the financial numbers that are involved. And if the client is happy with the system, the price involved, then we go ahead and move forward with a contract.
Okay, and somebody has a question about what is the process for a condo? Is it possible to do a condo solar?
Yes.
Solar for condo?
Yeah. Yes, I see. Yes, we definitely can do condos. I have done some in the past. It's always a little bit of a challenge, working with an HOA. We can do condos. We can also do, rental units. A great piece for solar is for those that own rental units where you have tenants. You could actually provide solar to your tenants and then basically play power company. So instead of your tenants, maybe your tenants are paying $2,000 a month in rent. I don't know where they'd be living right now, and it wouldn't be too great. But let's just say they're spending $2,000 a month in rent, and then another $150 electrical. Well, now you can collect that $2,000 rent check, plus you can collect for the electrical as well. So it's a really, really good way to be able to gain a new revenue stream with your tenants on your rental units without having to worry about rent control. Especially in San Francisco, this has been a very nice piece for a lot of San Francisco owners, where the rent control is very difficult to raise the rent unless you're providing another service to those tenants. So if you put solar on your roof and we go ahead and charge your tenants for that, now you have that new revenue stream that PG&E was once collecting. Now you as the homeowner get to collect it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to walk you through a proposal package the way I would with a typical client that might be interested in solar. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you now. So the first thing that I mentioned was that I need to determine how much power a client is using. So when I first speak with a client, a potential client, I get their information, their contact information, any particulars on, what their usage has been like and, what it might look like going forward. And then I send them an email with instructions on how to download the spreadsheet that you see here in front of you. The spreadsheet comes from the PG&E website, from your account portal. And it only takes 2 or 3 clicks to get to, but it tells you, as you can see what the usage has been over time. So the kilowatt hours used month by month, and then the PG&E cost. So yes, the dollar value you see here is not as important as the actual kilowatt hours. The dollar values do not represent the entire monthly electric spend, because this only is for PG&E and does not include Peninsula Clean Energy, which is our clean energy generation partner in San Mateo County. So these numbers do represent the full amount of electricity that this client was using, though, at the time. So as you can see, this gives your entire history all the way back to when they started the account. In this case, it was 2012. But we're going to go down here to the bottom. We're going to take a look at what they have been using. So I take a look at the last 12 months, which is represented here. Over the last 12 months, this particular client was using about 3,400 kilowatt hours per month, or for the year. So what we're looking at here again is the last 12 months right here. Gives us the year, their annual usage for electricity. But this particular client came to me saying they want to cover what they have been using, but then also they want to cover what an electric vehicle would use driving 13,350 miles a year. So the reason why it's very important to know this number, the 13,000 miles per year, is just like a standard combustion engine car has a certain miles per gallon. When we talk about electric vehicles, we talk about miles per kilowatt hour. So we know if this particular client needs to drive 13,350 miles a year and they're going to be charging at home, we can go ahead and do the math. Take that 13,350, divide it by 3 miles to the kilowatt hour, and divide it again by 12 for 12 months. And that gives us our monthly. So whoops, don't want to mess that up. So each one of these here is this number here with the addition of that electric vehicle. So once we add the electric vehicle to this customer's electrical usage, we now come up with the new number of 7,800 kilowatt hours per year. So now that I have that information, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share another screen here with you. I put that kilowatt hours used into my computer, into my estimating software, and then I go through that solar simulation that I mentioned. So I build a three-dimensional model of this person's home, and you can see these different colors. The shading is very important here. The shading shows that the lighter the color, the better the solar production. So we want to try and use up the lighter colors in this area to provide, our solar design. So looking at this here, again, the lighter the colors are on this rooftop, the better the solar production. So that's where we want to use those areas for solar panels. On this particular case, there is some extra room down here. I could have put these same panels in landscape mode and got better production down here. But one of the things that I'm always trying to do with my customers is I'm trying to balance solar production, price, and aesthetics. In this case, the homeowner did not want to have the panels right above their front door. So we discussed it and we said, you know what, we're going to use these panels on this dormer here. It doesn't get as quite a good production, but it keeps the panels out of sight. So we're always trying to work with our clients as to get them what they want. I mean, not only what they need as far as energy production, but they want as far as, the way it looks, and then of course the price as well. Looking at these 4 different arrays here, we have our production numbers down below. I'm not going to get too deep into this because it'll take too long, but what we're really looking at here is the total solar resource. And what this does is it takes into account how often these roof planes are hit with the sun whenever the sun is above the horizon, and then how it reacts as far as the angle of incidence. So optimal for solar production would be a 20-degree pitch at 180-degree azimuth. That'd be due south. All of these are the yellow arrays here are all facing fairly south, 192, 191. It's these two here that are 102 and 282 that bring these numbers down. But when we look at the overall total solar resource, we're looking at almost 90%. So this is a very productive solar system, even though it is on the smaller side, because it has such great solar resource. It doesn't take a whole lot of panels to produce a whole lot of energy. I also like to show my clients that as I mentioned, I build a three-dimensional model of the home, and that's how I determine these numbers. I use LiDAR for all the elevations. So I build in the homes, I build in any trees that might be shading it. So these production values that I showed you here, or the production values I show you here are as accurate as it can be. And then this leads to that financial analysis that I was talking about before. Once we've determined where all the best places are to put solar, again, I developed this proposal for my clients. And with this, again, just another look at what the house looks like with the solar on it. And it shows that in this case, if this client is using the amount of power that they have been using, but then is also adding this electric vehicle for 13,000 miles, this is going to save them about $204 a month on their electric bill. And over the 25-year warranty period, it's going to save almost $135,000 over that time. Now, I always like to clarify and be transparent with my clients that this does include a 7% annual rate increase from PG&E. At one point in time, I thought that was a little bit excessive, but believe it or not, here in 2022, we're only in March, and PG&E rates have already gone up 9%. So this actually might be a conservative estimate, these numbers here. Again, showing the house, another view for our clients so they can see what it might look like. The system size on this one, again, this is a rather small system. The homeowners have not been using a lot of power up to this point, but now that we account for the electric vehicle, it has gone up. But this is a 5.6 kilowatt system, and it's going to produce 7,817 kilowatt hours in the first year. If you might remember, and I can go back to this, we had on the on that spreadsheet, we were trying to offset 7,817. So we're right on the money, which is where we want to be. So that's always, good to go back and verify. Now let me go back to that. Okay. So yeah, we're right at 100% of what their consumption has been. This graph down here shows what our energy production is month by month, and also what our energy consumption is month by month. So this here we're doing here is that we have an inverse relationship between our production numbers, which are these orange lines here, and then our usage. We use more in the wintertime because our lights are on longer, but we produce more in the summertime because the sun is up longer. So this gives us the basis for what is called net metering. Net metering is a very important part of the solar process. It goes beyond the actual installation and then the production of your solar panels. Net metering allows us to send this excess production back to PG&E so they can credit your account and give that power back to you when you can't produce any time during the winter. We can go over net metering a little bit more after I get through the proposal. So if people have questions about that, there are some very interesting things happening with net metering with the Public Utility Commission and PG&E right now that I would like to get into as well. I'm going to hold off on that until we get to the end of the proposal, just make sure we can get through this. So without solar, this customer would be spending about $214 a month to cover their existing electric usage and the electric vehicle, and about $2,600 for the year. With solar, you're going to go down to about $10 to $11 per month on average, and that gives us a $127 bill for the year. The reason why you do still pay a little bit for your electric once you go solar is because we need to pay a non-bypassable fee to PG&E for the maintenance of their transmission lines. So again, going back to the net metering, we're going to send this excess power back to PG&E so they our account and send it to us. And so that's where this $10 to $11 a month goes for them being able to maintain their lines. As I mentioned, the two main reasons why people go solar are for the financial investment, but then also for environmental purposes. I do this for a living, but I am also an environmentalist myself. And so I always like to put on the bottom of this page just some financial stats, some environmental stats, so my clients can understand how this is helping to improve our planet and the future for our children. So this system here over 25 years would be the equivalent of planting about 1,548 trees or driving a car almost 6,000 miles less per year. Okay, so now the meat and potatoes part of the presentation or the proposal here. This system here, again, we're looking at a 5.6 kilowatt system. The overall cost ends up being $21,500. That does generate a 26% tax credit. So whenever you start a solar project or whenever you pay for a solar project, you're going to get 26 cents on the dollar back for every dollar you spend. This is guaranteed money. This is a tax credit. It's not a tax rebate. It's not a tax refund. It doesn't matter what your tax appetite is. So when you file for your taxes, if you get a refund already, this money would be added to that refund. If you end up paying money at the end of the year, this amount would be deducted from it. So it doesn't matter, again, what your tax appetite is. The only reason why you would not get the tax credit is if you are a nonprofit organization or if you decided to lease the solar system. I will also talk about leases at the end of this as well. It's something I would definitely advise against, being that we're on a call with a realtor here. Real estate agents will be able to tell you that having a leased solar system ends up being a lien on the house and that transfer of sale, which could kill a sale. So we can talk a little bit more about that at the end as well. So again, the system cost ends up being $21,500. It does generate almost $5,600 worth of tax incentives. So the overall cost of the homeowner here ends up being just short of $16,000. And that ends up being a 5.5-year payback. These two numbers here are probably the most important I'm going to show you in this entire presentation. What this means is this homeowner, with their existing electric usage and the addition of the electric vehicle, they would be paying PG&E almost $16,000 over the next 5.5 years for their electricity. If you go solar, that means you pay for that $15,910 up front, and then after 5.5 years, you're completely paid off, and you still have another 19.5 years left on that solar warranty and free solar power being generated on your roof every day. I'm not going to get too far into the details here. These are numbers I go over with my clients a little bit during presentations, but basically they're very explanatory. This is the utility consumption pre-solar for this customer, again, including that electric vehicle. With solar, this is what they would be doing. And in this case, they're going to be sending excess power back to the grid in the summer months and pulling from it in the winter months. And then here's our solar production month by month. I always tell my clients this is a really nice document to hold on to. And I always provide it to them in a PDF if they like, just because having this month by month is really nice. When I install a solar system, there's a full monitoring system that comes along with it, so you can track your solar production. And that monitoring company also sends my clients an email once a month that tells them what their production was for the previous month. Here we are, we're in mid-March. All of my clients have recently gotten their emails for February. So if this client got an email that says, hey, you produced 500 kilowatt hours in the month of February, we can go back here and say, oh, well, Stephen, in my estimate, he showed that I was going to do 46. So we're ahead of the game. I like to keep my estimating software default settings involved so that these numbers are on the conservative side. I'm a very big fan of under promising and over delivering. So I've never had a client come back to me and say, we did not hit our numbers. That has not yet happened to me, knock on wood, but I don't expect it to. Going down here, again, this is what the utility bill will be without solar, what it will be with solar. So again, this is where we go to that $10 a month. It's $9 in February because there's less days in February, but this is what we stay connected to the grid and for paying for those transmission lines. Here's where our cumulative NEM balance is. And this one was installed in May. Right away, we're overproducing, and it's not until we get to February where we start dipping into that net metering. But at the end of the year, it ends up being that we end up saving almost $2,500. At the bottom here, you're going to see a graph. Graph shows what this person's annual spend will be for solar or for electricity once they go solar. It stays down here. One thing that you might see is there is a little bit of an uptick once they go solar on their spend once we get into somewhere around year 11 or 12, and that is because there is an expected degradation to solar panels. Solar panels are expected to, at least the panels that I sell, I only sell top tier panels. The panels I sell, they're expected to degrade up to 2% in the first year, but then only 0.5% every year thereafter. So after the full 25 years, they're expected to be at 85% of their nameplate value. The gray lines here represent that 7% annual rate increase by PG&E. So even though there is a little bit of degradation in the panels, we get down to years 24 and 25, you're still way underspending compared to what you would be doing if you were just going with PG&E. Then the final page of the proposal, this shows our annual cash flow for my customers. So as I mentioned, the upfront cost for the system is $21,500. So that's the year zero, if you will, upfront cost. But then in year one, you're getting back your savings in solar and that nice big tax credit. So he's getting back about $8,000 in that first year. After that, it's just all savings in solar. But this is where we get to that 5.5-year payback. Once we get past that, then it's just money in your pocket, basically printing money on our roof until we get to year 25, it's $35,000 over that 25-year warranty period. Let me take a look here and see if there's any questions that we want to get to. New roof for solar. Excellent question. You do not necessarily need a new roof for solar, but there are some guidelines that we like to follow. A good rule of thumb is if the roof is over 15 years, if we're talking about a standard composite shingle roof, if it's over 15 years, we're definitely going to want to take a good look at it to make sure that it is capable of supporting solar. If it's older than that, then we might suggest replacing it or overlaying the comp shingles. One of the great things about solar, though, as I mentioned, is that you get, I'm going to stop sharing so you can actually see me again. Can everybody see me now? Anyway, going back to this, when you go solar, you have that 26% tax credit for every dollar you spend. If it ends up being a new roof in order to make solar viable, it just makes sense that you should be able to get that tax credit as well. Now, I should be very clear. I am not a tax attorney. I am not a CPA, but I do know what my clients do. 20% of my clients either need roof and or electrical upgrades to their home in order to make solar a viable option. Now, I'm not a tax advisor, but I know that what my clients do. And of that 20% of my clients over the last 8 years, I have never received a phone call from any of them saying, I did not receive the tax credit for the roof, or I did not receive the tax credit for upgrading my electrical panel. So when we get into the proposal process, one of the questions I do ask is, how old is your roof? What type of roof is it? And I investigate further if necessary. And the great thing about going solar with Solar Pro is that I do have licensed electricians and licensed roofers on my staff. So when we install a solar system, you will be guaranteed you'll have a licensed roofer doing the install on the roof, and you'll have a licensed electrician or electrical panel on the ground making those connections as well. Is it easy to add panels if a client wants to eventually change an electric water heater? Yes, adding panels is possible. The ease of adding panels depends oftentimes on the type of system that's installed. I only install microinverter systems now. One of the reasons why I do is because they allow you to go ahead and upsize the system and upscale it very, very easily. Not all solar systems are made the same though. Other systems will not allow you to do that as easily. One of the things that we talked about with net metering, and I might as well jump into it now because it makes sense, Gene. So the net metering agreement with PG&E is about to change. Right now, we're on net metering 2.0, which is not as advantageous to solar customers as the original net metering 1.0 was. Net metering 3.0 is now in the work. Net metering 0.0 is going to be the new net metering agreement, and that will be going into effect sometime in the next year. It is being debated by the Public Utility Commission, and the original version would take what I just showed you as being a 5.5-year payback. According to our trade organization, would average year payback from 6 years to 16 years. So we talked about how solar is a good green investment, and it's also a good financial investment. If the payback period goes from 6 years to 16 years, well, that's not nearly as good of a financial investment as it is now. So the way things stand right now, this is being debated by the Public Utility Commission. They're getting pressure from everybody from Governor Newsom to ex-Governor Schwarzenegger, and of course the entire solar industry. And they're renegotiating this policy. So we have to wait and see what it's going to be. If they were to vote on it, the soonest they would be able to vote on it would be mid-April, which would mean that the soonest it would go into effect would be 4 months later in mid-August. So there's been a very, very large influx in solar demand over the last 3 months because of this potential policy. And what us as solar customers, solar installers, what we're trying to do is we're trying to put as many solar panels on a roof as we possibly can before this policy changes. We don't think it's as what the initial policy showed, but whatever it is, it's not going to be as good as the current net metering 2.0 agreement is. So if solar is something that you or any of your clients, friends, or family are interested in doing, and it's something that you're really looking into, I would very, very much advise do not waste your time. I am not a high pressure salesman by any means. I don't put, dates on my proposals on purpose, but if you want to get the best deal, and the Public Utility Commission, it's very, very important as soon as possible.
Is it that the utility companies are pushing for extra fees on top of what's being charged today, or is it? I think it's more the net metering. So if you can.
Yes. So the what's happening with the utility companies, especially PG&E, because of the current net metering agreement, they cannot raise rates on solar customers. Now, over the last 3 or 4 years, with the wildfires and then the bankruptcy and lawsuits that have stemmed from those wildfires, Public Utility Commission has allowed PG to increase customer rates across the board, except for solar customers because of the net metering agreement. So PG&E is upset that they can't get more money out of the people that are trying to put them out of business by going green and creating their own power. So they've been lobbying the Public Utility Commission to allow them to increase the rates and basically tax solar customers. So that's where we are right now. They might claim that the reason is because normal ratepayers that don't have solar are subsidizing solar customers because solar customers aren't paying as much in that $10 a month for covering transmission lines. But the reality is the public utility, that PG&E wants all of their customers to subsidize their lawsuits and their bankruptcy and the fires they're creating. So be careful what you hear out there. If anybody is interested in what's going on with the Public Utility Commission, I can send you guys a video. The really nice video that KPIX News did of us at the protest a few weeks ago, and it really explains what the potential changes might be and what we can do to stop them, hopefully.
And I do have the link to that video, so I'll be sending it out with our follow-up.
That's right, I did say.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through the questions for you so that.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody is asking so can you repeat again what brand of solar panels you install?
So I'm not married to any one brand. I use what's best for the particular client. My go-to over the last 4 or 5 years has been Hanwha Q cells. They're a really, really reliable panel, German engineered, manufactured in South Korea. Actually, in some assembly that actually takes place in the US, which is kind of nice. Problem is right now with supply chain issues, it looks like those panels are going to be unavailable for some time. They don't have them and there's too much demand. So I also use Canadian solar, both for Q cells and Canadian solar. I'm using most of the time, I'm using 400 watt modules. These are all black, very, very sleek looking modules. Panels, and I only sell really high, good looking panels. A lot of people have told me that I like to sell the tuxedo of solar. I kind of like to think of it that way as well. If I really go a super high end panel with the absolute best look and feel to it, I like to go with Solaria. Solaria is actually a local company. They do all of their manufacturing in South Korea. But they're an excellent company, and they have a little bit different size and different format for their modules. So I like to think that they're the best looking panels on the planet, but they also, because of their different size, they tend to fit well on certain houses that other panels do not. So right now, or at least for the last few years, my go-to panels, my 2 best sellers have been Q cells and then Solaria. But I have a feeling we're going to be moving more to the Canadian solar now that the Q cells are going to be in limited supply for the near future.
Okay, and we have, I guess, two different topics. One is I'll go to batteries in terms of what is your take on batteries and how much is the cost on that. Okay. And then I have a few others, so I'm catching everybody's questions.
Thank you, Jean. Yes, with regards to batteries, I mean, it's a very popular question right now. So battery storage, the technology is there and it's really good. However, there are very few players in the market right now. So my thought on the batteries is it's kind of twofold. If you don't need a battery, if you don't absolutely need one right now, my advice to my friends, family, and clients is you wait. If you can wait for a battery, I believe that the prices will continue to fall as players come into the market, and as there's more supply out there. Right now, batteries are on the more expensive side. They don't end up penciling out well financially unless you have, if you meet 2 conditions, and you have to meet both of them. If of your house that has a medical need to keep their power continuous. So that could be something as simple as a CPAP machine, or I have another client who has a daughter who has a medical condition where she needs to have her medicine refrigerated at all times. If you meet that requirement and you live in a high fire danger zone that is defined as a tier 2 fire danger zone, or any house that has had 2 or more safety power shutoffs by PG&E, if you meet both of those conditions, then the batteries end up being pretty much free because of the rebates. PG&E and the state of California do not want to turn off your power in a safety power shutoff if it could potentially kill somebody in your house. That would be a really big lawsuit. So in order to make sure that that doesn't happen, they are willing to provide batteries to clients that meet those 2 conditions for free. So if you think that you might need those, again, you can reach out to me and I can help you determine that. It's rare that I've had clients that meet both those conditions, but if you do, it's a good way to go. If not, again, my suggestion would be to wait, but just to give people an idea, a single home battery, which will keep your emergency loads going, so your refrigerator, freezer, some LED lights, maybe your modem and charging cell phones, one of those right now is going for about $17,000. And that does come with that 26% tax credit. And also a state rebate as well. If you get all of the rebates and all the tax credits involved, it brings that price down to about $10,000. But again, that's only going to keep your emergency loads going. If you want to be able to run your house like you normally would when the grid is on, that price, that upfront cost, the price tag goes to $27,000, and then with incentives, it can bring it down to about $15,000. So again, it's really a cost benefit analysis right now. Just to give everybody an idea, I've had solar on my house now for 8 years. I still do not have a battery. Now, on Monday, I had my only second power outage in 16 years of living here. So that's why I don't have one. It doesn't make a lot of financial sense for me, and I sell these. So, I would love to be able to show people batteries on the side of my house, but I also like to be able to tell people, hey, I'm the transparent guy. I'm not going to sell you anything that doesn't make sense. And that's why I don't recommend them at this time.
Thank you. And we do have a bunch of questions about the roof because I think people are concerned. So one is actually the most recent one was asking, are there any types of roofs that cannot handle solar? Any particular ones?
It is a case by case basis. The absolute best roof solar is going to be a metal standing seam roof. So if anybody's talking about replacing their roof and going solar, or if you're doing a remodel or addition on your house, solar, the standing seam metal roofs, yes, they are more money, but and the great thing about them is that we can clamp onto those standing seams. We don't have to penetrate the roof, so there'll be no holes put in the roof. So that's the absolute best. The most that we work on most of the time would be a regular pitched composition asphalt shingle. Those are not a problem. When we get into flat roofs tend to hold water. So that's always, whenever we do a flat roof, I always send my roofer out to investigate to make sure that we don't need to replace the roof, potentially overlay the roof, or do any kind of ponding mitigations. We don't want any puddles forming around our mounts on a flat roof, because if they're holding water, it could end up being a leak down the road. So those are a little bit tougher, but we've never found one that we can't work on. We just always have to do some extra work. And then when we get to tile roofs, there are different kinds of tiles. Some tiles we can work on without a problem. Other tiles, especially like the more antique clay tiles. I mean, we live here, we got Hillsborough, we got San Mateo Park, we got a lot of those antique clay tile roofs. They're almost impossible to install solar on the way they are. Those types of houses, we do something a little different where we might remove the roof tiles in the footprint of the solar array. And then we actually inlay the solar array into the rest of the tiles. So it actually looks like it's floating. It ends up being a very, very nice look, but it does end up being more costly because we end up having to put asphalt shingles underneath where the solar array is and replace those tiles with that inlay. So it's very rare that we come across a roof that we absolutely cannot work on, but there are different ways to work on the different types of roof. And the more difficult roofs obviously end up costing a little bit more to do the install.
Okay, and that's kind of interesting because it's related to one of the questions is someone mentions, Rob mentions that they're in the process of redoing their roof. Do they have to redo the whole thing, or can they just do the half where the solar will be installed?
They can redo whatever is necessary for. I mean, if you're already redoing the roof, since I'm reading it right now, redoing our roof. To do solar, yes, you don't have to do the whole thing. But that being said, if you do the entire roof and you only put solar on, the IRS is not going to know. So I'm just going to throw that there, and people can take that how they want to. But if you're applying for that tax credit because you need to improve your roof and repair your roof in order to install solar, most of my clients apply for the entire roof for the solar tax credit. Again, it depends on what their CPA and their tax advisors feel comfortable with. I have had others, if we used 30% of the roof, they might apply for it on 30%, but a good example is I did a commercial solar job on Rollins Road in Burlingame 2 years. We installed 500 kilowatts of solar on a 60,000 square foot roof. We replaced that flat roof with a TPO membrane that cost over $300,000. At the time, the tax credit was 30%. That building owner got over $100,000 in tax credits on the roof alone. Now, we filled up every square inch of that roof with solar panels, and it was very easily justifiable that we could not do it on the old roof. But, he went ahead and applied for it. And again, he received over $100,000 in tax credits on a roof that he was going to replace anyway.
Wow.
So my advice to people is when you're putting solar on, if the roof does need to be replaced in just a portion of it, still makes sense to replace the whole thing all at once, that you don't have any potential problems with interfacing and leaks from the old to the new, and you can potentially apply for that tax credit on the whole.
That makes sense. I think the other thing is that if you're already having a roofer come out, it might cost you not that much less to do only a portion of your roof. So there might be that as well. And then related to that is Nate asked, is there a problem? What if you need to re-roof your home? So I'm assuming after you've already put solar, and then for some reason you find out, because you mentioned that it only has to be 15, as long as it's less than 15, you don't necessarily recommend replacement. So what happens if now you need to replace your roof or repair your roof?
Well, two things happen. If we deem that your roof is in good condition to install solar, then it's in good condition to install solar. We're not expecting you to need to re-roof in the near future. However, two things happen. When you put solar on a roof, it shades your roof. And the thing that degrades roof shingles more than anything else is the sun. So it actually ends up preserving your roof, a solar array preserving your roof longer because it's now in the shade. As long as we make sure, and I use top of the line mounts, I use the only mounts on the market that do not void your roof warranty when we use them. A lot of people don't know this, but when you put a new roof on your house, if you call DirecTV and you put a satellite dish on that roof, you just voided your brand new roof warranty. Any penetrations to a new roof void the roof warranty unless you use the actual brand of mounts that I use. They're the only ones on the market that are certified by all the roofing manufacturers that say that if you use them properly, it does not void your roof warranty. So if we put solar on a roof that's an older roof, we're going to make sure that we're not going to have to replace that roof in the near future. If for whatever reason we did have to replace it, I mean, if other areas of the roof start to degrade and you want everything to match, of course, that's the right thing to do. It is very easy to just ratchet off the rails and the panels and leave the mounts in place, and then you can just re-roof right around them, and you don't have to do anything more. Once the roof is done, then we come back and we put the panels back on. I know that somebody here, Jean, had a question about price per panel.
Yep, that was my last question.
That is not something that's really relevant because all panels are different. Different wattages, different production, different efficiencies. So that's something that's really kind of an impossible question to answer. But I do get that question now and then. What you're really looking for is you're looking for price per watt, and price per watt is what you're going to see as if you really look into solar research. That's what you're going to hear about. But price per watt, if you do research it, is going to be very, very misleading because the national average for price per watt is much, much different than it is here in California and even the Bay Area. Here right now, you're looking at a price per watt, especially recently we've had some price increases because of inflation, because of the supply chain shortages. Right now in California, for premium system, you're looking at somewhere between $3.75 and $4 a watt. That's what I would suggest. You're looking at my prices are kind of right in the middle of that. I always like to tell my clients, I never promise to be the cheapest. I only promise to be the best and the fastest. If you go online, you look at Solar Pro's reviews, I think you'll see that I feel we are the best. I think the speed is very important, especially when we're talking about the PUC and those kinds of things. Smaller companies like me, I only take on the work that I can personally. So, right now we're signing clients and here we are, we're, mid-March, and we're looking at install dates in early June. So for signing a contract with Solar Pro to actually getting signed off on your permit, you're looking at about 2.5 months, 2.5, maybe 3 months at the long end. A lot of the larger companies, you're looking closer to 6 months to a year. Although, be very careful, people, because with the new changes with the PUC, I'm finding that a lot of these larger companies that used to be 6 months to a year out, just as of right around Christmas, that's what they were telling people. Now they're saying that they can install next month. That concerns me because they know that there is a huge demand right now on solar, and they want to get as many panels up on those roofs as possible and make as much money as possible. So that tells me that they're hiring anybody that will get up and walk on your roof. So yes, you might get installed quickly, but you have to pass inspection and then actually be granted interconnection by PG&E before you can get grandfathered in on the current net metering 2.0. So a lot of these larger companies, yeah, they might promise the world and they might get you installed, but if they don't do a good job, they're not going to pass inspection. And if you don't pass inspection, you can't get interconnected. So be careful when you're talking to people to make sure that they actually can meet the timeline that you're looking for.
Thank you very much for that. I think as much as possible, we'll send out the video that Steve had talking about the changes with the public utilities. There are, Joan mentions that in Orange County, the local utility is actually already putting some extra charge on solar users. So there's a lot out there. And I think the time is of the essence. One of the reasons why I thought Steve would be a great speaker is also he's located in Burlingame, so he's local, and he has a small business like me. So, and he cares. He seems to really be passionate about what he's doing, and I think that's super important. So I have his information here, and we'll be sending that out with the follow-up email if anybody has any questions. But Steve, did you want to say anything more, or I didn't want to?
Just one last thing. The email address you have in there, you can actually give them my personal email address. So it's just like it shows right there, but steve@solarproenergysystems.com. And then that'll go right to my inbox if anybody has any questions. I am local. I do live and work in Burlingame. I've lived here my whole life. I do a lot of installs. Millbrae, San Mateo, Burlingame, Hillsborough, San Mateo County is my stomping ground. And then, of course, San Francisco County, but that's a little bit of a different market up there. But when it comes to rental properties, as I mentioned, it's very, very beneficial to go solar in those cases.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that was, I didn't even think about that whole rental property thing. So that's pretty interesting to think about.
It can be an entirely new revenue stream for people. And we've got partners, business partners that can make it so that you can automate your rent collection and your utility collection all together. And with the advanced smart meters that we have on people's meters, it ends up being completely automated where you can charge them the same way the utility companies do for price per kilowatt hour, and you wouldn't have to do any of the math or anything else. So there are ways to do that.
Great. So if anybody would like to look into that, we'll give you Steve's information. It's also here. And as he said, steve@solarproenergysystems.com. And thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Thank you once again to Steve for your presentation. And I look forward to being able to continue to refer people to you. And hopefully we'll all meet in person someday. And that's what we're looking forward to. But for now, I wish you a good rest of the evening. And definitely, if you're thinking about solar, I would recommend, as Steve mentioned, to get it done, to start the process sooner than later. Thank you. Bye.